This is the BMC Timemachine Road01 of Dimension Data for 2019. Of course, Dimension Data, they have swapped over from Cervelo bikes for the season. Let's have a look at what I think is a really striking design. Now, the Timemachine is the aero road race bike for the squad for the season. And well, you can see just why, because check out how aerodynamically designed and profiled these tubes are, including, of course, the drop seat stays here at the rear. And well, the bottom bracket on this, that's going to be super stiff, I reckon, because just the sheer size of it. Now, one of the reasons as well behind this oversized bottom bracket is because of integration. Now, not UCI race legal, but you can in fact put a storage pouch in here, or a storage box or container, whatever you want to call it, and that enables you to actually be able to carry your not quite worldly belongings, but certainly a spare inner tube and maybe a CO2 canister too. Now, sticking with integration, the bottle cages, just check them out. Yeah, they do look pretty big, and they're probably the biggest bottle cages I've ever seen in my life, but there's a reason behind it. Again, it's because of the aerodynamics. So it's preventing the wind from creating loads and loads of turbulence across the bike when you pass through it. Instead, it's smoothed out nicely with these bottle cages. And then just tucked away inside of the bottle cage on the down tube is the Di2 junction box. That's really well done. It's nicely out of harm's way. Of course, if these bottle cages aren't for your liking or your taste, you could well put some standard ones on there, but well, it's not going to be as aerodynamic. And when you've got an aero bike, we need to keep it aero. Sticking with aerodynamics then, well, we've got an integrated aero cover here down on the lower part of the TCC fork. The idea behind that is to actually optimise the airflow at all different yaw angles. And then, if we look down here on the drive side fork leg, well, there's a slight aerodynamic profile here, and that's actually got a replaceable threaded insert in there for the through axle, but also that will help just smooth out a little bit of airflow there too. Next up is the Integrated Cockpit System, or ICS for short. Now, traditionally, integrated bars and stems, they were a one-piece affair, so totally moulded into one, and it made a bit of a headache for many people out there, because finding the exact bar width and stem length for your requirement may not be that simple. Instead, this one is a two-piece unit, so it's absolutely great. You can customise it to your heart's content, or, well, to the limitations that are available. And the cables are totally internally routed in here. You can't see a thing because the lower part of the stem here, just made out of black plastic, well, that houses the hoses as well as the Di2 cables. And it looks brilliant, I think, in my opinion. And there is also a slight amount of rotation in these bars too, about 9 degrees. So if you don't want to have them exactly as a pre-moulded pair of bars would come, you can change them a little bit. Now, the BMC bars, they measure 39 centimetres at the hoods, and then on the drops, slightly flared out, and they go up to 40 centimetres. Stem length, 130 millimetres. Now, the seat post, this comes from BMC because, of course, it has to be able to fit inside of the BMC frame. Made of carbon fibre, and on the front of it you can see slightly rough effect on it, and that's probably just to actually aid the frame to stay in the correct position, because remember, sometimes the carbon on carbon can become quite slippery, and if you don't want to use carbon paste, that could be your saviour. Then on the rear we've got a couple of gloss strips which could well optimise the airflow there, because it's also got a camtail design which is going to allow the airflow just to be a little bit smoother coming off the back end of it. Then fitted into the top of the seat post we've got a Celia Talia Team Edition saddle. A couple of scuffs on there. The owner of the bike, Ryan Gibbons, I reckon he might have dropped it a couple of times when he's been out training. So a couple of deviations from a complete standard group set, which I'll come on to shortly. First up, we've got the Rotor Twin Power Power Meter. That measures left-right measurements. And then the one that stands out a mile, the KMC X11 SL gold chain. I do like a gold chain. Now, the wheels on this particular bike, they are the Envy SES 3.4 disc. So they're wider than the predecessor. They're now 29mm external width, and the rear is 42mm deep, and the front 38. Now, that width of 29mm is actually optimised to be able to be used with 25mm tyres, which is exactly what these Vittoria Corsa tubular tyres are. 25. Now, this particular pair of wheels are actually brand spanking new, because at the time of filming they're not even on the Envy website as of yet. How do I know they're brand spanking new? Well, they come fitted with the NV hubs. So previously, the wheels would come with either DT Swiss hubs, Chris King hubs, or even White Industry hubs. But NV, they actually decided to develop their own hubs. We need to check out what that new NV free hub sounds like, don't we? Let's have a listen. Not bad. Now, the other wheels that Dimension Data could well be using during the season are the NV 5.6 disc. So the rear there would be 63mm deep and the front 54mm deep. Now, if last year's wheels are anything to go by, the front wheel is generally just a little bit wider than the rear, normally about 0.75 of a millimetre. So the group set on the bike, other than of course the chain set and chain that we've already mentioned, is Shimano Dura-Ace, and it's the 9170 model. So that means that the gearing, that's electronically operated, and the rear derailleur utilises that extended rear derailleur hanger here, as you can see. Apparently that's due to actually increase or improve the gear shifting quality. And the braking, well, that's hydraulically operated, and the front rotor is 160mm and the rear 140. Now, this particular bike belongs to Ryan Gibbons, and it's actually his training bike, so it's his spare bike here at the race because he's been getting in some miles beforehand. And, well, the chainrings are size 54 and 39, and the cassette is an 11:28 ratio, which is pretty much standard we see with all pros using Shimano. Gibbons, he's opted for a pair of 172.5mm cranks, and then threaded into them is a pair of Shimano Dura-Ace SBDSL, and it's the 9100 model. So Gibbons himself, he stands at 1m81, which is just a touch over 5 feet 11, and he's opted for a size 54cm frame. His saddle height is 76 centimetres. And the distance from the tip of the saddle to the centre of the handlebars, that's 58.5 centimetres. And the drop from the saddle to the bars, that's 11 centimetres. And the weight of it, it comes in at 7.61 kilos. So there we are, the BMC Timemachine Road01 of Dimension Data for 2019. Let me know what you think of it down there in the comments section below. I've enjoyed taking a look at this one.